Hey tankers, this is episode 16 of my Road to Unicum series. Today we look at the very popular Tier 6 British medium, the Cromwell, in a Tier 7 Lakeville battle. And prior to the battle I had asked if any light tanks were going to go mid and didn't get any response, so I decided to scout it myself. From the northern side of Lakeville you have two spotting locations. One is just ahead of me to the right, up this little hill by that bush and that tree. The other is straight ahead, this bush here, by this little rock outcropping. And I come up to this location because, as a Tier 6 tank, I only have 360 meters of view range. And I do have coated optics, which pushes that out a little bit, and I spot a T-29 heavy tank. Now, the T-29 is making a very common mistake. If you're going to approach city, the safest thing to do is stay down in the K-line, but he was straying a little bit too close to the road, and as a result is able to spot him since that T-29 really doesn't have any meaningful camo. My third shot was aimed too high. It bounced harmlessly off the side of his turret. I should have been aiming lower at his tracks, both because A, his side hull is very soft, and B, if I track him, then we can continue to put some more damage into him. The unfortunate thing for our side is we didn't really have tanks set up to apply more damage to that T-29. It would have been great to take him out early. One of our light tanks is basically noobiciding. He's charging up the east side of the city, and that's basically a one-way ticket, but he does spot some tanks and help me get some damage on that KV-1S. The Cromwell is really popular because it has amazing speed and agility. It's a highly mobile tank, and it has a good Dpm gun with a very functional silver penetration of 145. On the downside, the tank has a really poor gun bloom. You can see every time I turn my turret or the hull, the aiming reticle really blows up quite a bit. So, you'll have a lot of shots that sail. You may have noticed about 20 seconds ago against that St Emil, I had a pretty good shot lined up, but it just sailed over his tank. Thankfully, because this gun does have a very high rate of fire, when you miss tanks, it's not a really big deal. But the main thing to note is that, because this is a high DPM, low alpha gun, it's more of a bleeder gun. You don't want to trade shot for shot with a lot of other tanks at Tier 7 and Tier 8 because they'll have better, single shot damage. Alright, if you're in the spot that I'm in, by the way, and you get spotted early, you can drop down into the ditch and hide there until you are no longer lit. The problem is if you stay in that spot too long behind that bush after you've been spotted, even if you drop down into the ditch, once their tanks reach the G and H lines, they'll have shots on you. And granted, the Cromwell's a relatively small tank, so you won't have that much of your tank exposed, but the armor is paper thin, so you really can't rely on bouncing anything. Okay, here you can see that really huge gun, bloom on that aiming reticle, and this is even with gun laying drive and 100% crew trained up. Okay, I get one shell into the SU. He starts to turn toward me, get a second penetrating shot, and then I'm just gonna hide here behind hard cover. Both TDs are firing in my direction. I just want to wait until I'm no longer lit. Generally, I think that takes about somewhere in the neighborhood about 6 to 8 seconds. Both of their Tier 7 TDs have made a bit of a mistake in terms of approaching the city along that northeast road. I don't really recommend going along here, and the problem is that you're going to eat damage as you're approaching the city. It's really unnecessary. That St Emil all the way up top is actually the best place. I did catch him there, and then this T-29 should be aiming lower, kind of toward his lower front hull. That first shot kind of was aimed too high. I did manage to track him, but that T-29 turret is like adamantite. It's super strong. All right, I have been kind of watching Valley and occasionally just clicking on it, just asking people to help defend. I'm in a good spot here. I don't want to leave this position since we have those TDs that are along the road approach to the city, so I want to try to keep them lit and get some damage on them. There is one thing I've done with this tank to help improve its spotting capability, because especially for solo pubbing, you'll end up in a lot of Tier 7, Tier 8 battles. One thing which I have found fairly useful is to run with the binoculars instead of the rammer. You lose a bit of your DPM, but the nice thing is that when you're in a forward spotting location, or in late game, you can really camo snipe very effectively and keep other tanks lit. Okay, that T-25-2 again, keeping him spotted. He's still kind of in that approach to the city in between the buildings, and then his T-67 moves up into the road, and his first shot, my tank is like butter. Like the driver gets taken out. I gotta pop the first aid kit, and then my next shot, pretty luckily for me, tracks T-67. The middle of the reticle is aimed at his tracks. That's what I want. So it holds him in place, and we burn him down. So by taking him out, we've gone from a 3 versus 7 down to a 3 versus 6. Still a pretty rough spot to be in, and there's several enemy tanks that can one-shot me, so I have to be very careful and can't afford to trade. The nice thing is we still have our Panther at relatively high hit points, and while he doesn't have a high alpha gun either, he's got really high penetration. Now the T-25-2, as soon as he fired and missed, I stepped back in immediately and then put two more shells into him and finish him off. Now we've gone in a span of 30 seconds from a 3 versus 7 to down to 3 versus 5. I still need to be patient, and they've got two very dangerous TDs that hit hard as well as their T-29. We haven't seen their Wolverine or their Arties. The kind of question is, where are they? And looks like that was an Artie fire, and I spot the T-29 again. He's in between buildings in the city, so I'm going to move up here, and I think right here I get just a touch of unfortunate RNG. That shot flies straight, and that hull isn't very strong. But I do manage to catch him in the side. You can see his turret's facing over me. He sees me, he spotted me, so I can't let him get a shot because he could potentially one-shot me with a good damage roll. Just being patient, and it's interesting. The T-29 really he ends up dying to one of my shots later in the game. It's just really a steady accumulation of damage, and if you think about that really early mistake that he had about driving too close to the road, too close to the J lane, and getting spotted by me, that was one of the things that helped determine the outcome of the battle. Alright, the SU's been spotted, and the T-29 as well. I take a shot at the T-29, a quick snapshot before it gets behind the building, but he pokes out his front here, so I have an opportunity to finish him off here, but as soon as he fires, he wisely pulls back behind the building. And he's not going to come out the other side because he knows I'm firing at him from the road. We know where their SU is. He's kind of up all the way up along that A lane. He's pretty close to our base. And then you can see the Wolverine has been spotted in our base, and he's isolated himself. He's isolated against the Panther, and the Panther is going to go punch his face in. So that was a mistake on his part. And then their Artie, for whatever reason, decides to push up along the road. And he'd fired on me a couple times previously, but he just allowed me to finish him off. And you can see, shots are coming in. So, the T-29 probably, and potentially, both of their TDs are, firing on my location. But this hard cover, is great protection. I'm just waiting till I drop from their view range. Okay, so the T-29, he's poking out here. He's not angling his hull properly, and I finish him off. And the Panther also killed the Wolverine. So now we've gone from a 3 versus 7 to a 3 versus 2. The common reaction from a lot of players would be, go cap. But obviously, that's going to take 100 seconds. And their 2D TDs, if one of them comes back to base, they can one-shot me. And I won't get any help from my team because the Panther and the Churchill are on the other side of the map. So what I instead opt to do is to go ahead and push up and see if I can get some flanking shots on them. We each lose a tank there. Our Panther just got taken out, but the St Emil is dead, so it's just the SU, and he's been up along this A lane for a while now, so I just need to move up carefully and spot him. And he's taken sustained damage throughout the match. I've hit him previously, I think twice, and so this is an easy kill shot there. And I managed to finish the battle with 5 kills and 2,600 damage to earn an Ace Tanker Mastery badge. Really is just about being smart and using hard cover because the tank really has no effective armor. In the next video, we're going to look at the T-62A spotting hill on everyone's favorite map, Prokhorovka. And then I think after that, we're going to be looking at the American Heavy Line. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care.